When police arrived at a student apartment building in Kalamazoo on a spring night in 2018, they thought they were handling a routine missing person case. A Western Michigan University student named Aniya Mack, age 24, had been out of contact with her friends for several days. This was strange behavior for her. Police found no clear signs of trouble at first, just some odd things around her home that nobody could explain. But then something unexpected happened outside her apartment that cracked the case wide open and revealed a shocking secret in the young student's life that nobody saw coming. In the early morning hours of Thursday, June 28, 2018, officers from the Kalamazoo Police Department went to Hunter Ridge Apartments in West Michigan. The building housed college students who attended local universities. Officers were looking for 24-year-old Aniya Mack, a psychology major at Western Michigan University. Nobody had heard from Aniya since the previous Sunday. Those who knew her called her Nia. She was very social and always busy with different activities. In high school, she had been an honor roll student who participated in student council, health occupations association, marching band, concert band, varsity cheerleading, volleyball, and softball. In college, she still sang in the church choir and danced with an all-girls dance group at WMU. For someone like her to be out of contact for even a few hours was very unusual. Several days was extremely concerning. Aniya's good friend LaQuenta Watson called the Kalamazoo police. She explained that she usually talked with Aniya every single day. When she hadn't heard from her after a couple of days, she became suspicious. Her calls went straight to voicemail. Her worries grew stronger when she went to Aniya's new workplace at the Great Lakes Alternative Research Center, where Aniya worked with autistic children. The staff told her that Aniya had failed to show up for work 2 days in a row. She had only started this job 3 months earlier and was very excited about it. There was no way she would skip work unless something serious had happened. Aniya's childhood friend Dominic Thomas met with police at the apartment building. He had spoken with Aniya's mother Loretta, who lived in Louisiana, as well as LaQuenta. All three had become increasingly worried about not being able to reach her. Dominic explained to the officers that it was completely unlike Aniya to not answer her phone. He emphasized that if anything was going on, she would call him because they had been best friends their entire lives, all 24 years. He stressed that he knew for certain she would reach out to him if she needed help. When officers asked if Aniya had any medical issues, psychological problems, or took any medications, Dominic said no to all these questions. They asked about drug abuse, and he confirmed she had no issues with hard drugs. Officers learned that Aniya owned a white 2008 Malibu. They found it in the parking lot, but it had no license plate. Nearby was a second, almost identical vehicle, another white Malibu. This second car had Aniya's license plates on it, but was registered to a man named Gustavo. Both vehicles had 2 flat tires and neither looked like it could be driven. There was a light on inside Aniya's apartment, and it seemed like a television was on, but nobody answered the door. Dominic told officers that Aniya had experienced some problems in the past with her boyfriend, 25-year-old Donovan Lewis. Friends called him Don, Donan, or Donnie. He was a former community college basketball player and YMCA lifeguard. He had recently returned to Kalamazoo after a short stay with his brother in Indianapolis, where he had worked as an intern at a multimedia company. Now back in Michigan, Donovan had taken whatever job he could find. For the past week and a half, he had been working night shifts as a janitor at a large local manufacturing company. When officers asked Dominic about any issues between Aniya and Donovan, he said there had been several occasions where they had conflicts. He mentioned that police had been called once before. He described how the situation had escalated to some level of aggression on one occasion. Donovan had thrown water on Aniya several times, and once when she came outside to talk to him, he drove off in the car while her arm was caught in the window, dragging her down the street. Aniya's roommate Cora arrived to let the search party into the apartment. She told officers Lockett and Lebret that it was normal for her and Aniya not to see each other for days at a time. They had been assigned as roommates less than a year earlier by the student building management. Cora explained that she had last seen Aniya on Saturday, before she left home for her own graduation. She had returned that morning around 6 a.m. from work, gone to the movies, and come back. However, She knew someone had been in the apartment that day because they had turned on the air conditioning and put clothes in the washer. She thought maybe Aniya had come home while she was gone. When asked about Donovan, Cora confirmed that she had seen him around but hadn't seen anyone recently since she had been away for the weekend. She thought maybe Aniya had just gone home for a visit. Officers searched the apartment and found several strange things. The bathtub in the bathroom that Aniya used was completely full of water, as if she had drawn a bath but never taken it. Cora pointed out that this was unusual. Someone other than herself had definitely been in the home. Someone had turned on the air conditioning unit and started a load of laundry. In the washing machine were men's clothes and 2 teal bathroom rugs. There were no bath mats in Aniya's bathroom, the one with the full tub of water. Cora noted that Donovan and Aniya often did laundry together, so finding his clothes wasn't completely strange. However, she didn't think Donovan had a key to the apartment. Usually, if he was coming over, either she or Aniya would leave the door unlocked for him. Inside Aniya's bedroom, officers found many of her personal belongings that she would normally take with her if she traveled. There was also the unexplained situation with the 2 Malibus. Some officers thought the situation was concerning. The only person they hadn't talked to yet was Donovan. One officer mentioned that they would probably end up calling this in as a suspicious case in the morning. Another officer pointed out all the people who couldn't reach her. Her best friend, her parents, her godsister, her pastor, and her workplace. When they discussed Donovan, they noted that he also claimed he hadn't seen her since Sunday. Officers left the apartment with different opinions about how serious the situation was. They hadn't found any obvious signs that something bad had happened, but there was a lot that didn't seem right. One officer expressed doubt that this was a real missing person case where Aniya was in danger, saying they had nothing to suggest she was endangered except that her boyfriend had been difficult with her at one point. The other officer found it weird that somebody was still coming and going from the apartment while the roommate hadn't seen Aniya in almost a week but didn't think anything of it. Donovan Lewis had been unreachable. What officers knew about him came from what Aniya's friends had told them after speaking with him. Both Dominic and LaQuenta said that Donovan had also been trying unsuccessfully to reach Aniya since Sunday. Officer Libretto found an address for Donovan's mother's home and visited it, but nobody came to the door. After failing to locate Donovan at his mother's home, LaQuenta contacted Officer Lockett again. This time she told him that she knew Donovan was finishing his janitorial shift at Stryker Medical Equipment Company at 3:30 a.m. He would be returning to Aniya's apartment afterward. Officers Aday and Lockett returned to Hunter Ridge Apartments once more that night to look for him. Cora and Dominic had left. There was no answer at the door. The officers decided to wait outside for a while to see if Donovan would show up. One officer commented that he thought it was strange that Donovan didn't seem more concerned if his girlfriend was missing. Another officer pointed out that Donovan was the one person who hadn't talked to police yet. They discussed the odd situation with the license plates and the 2 white cars on flat tires, noting that neither vehicle had moved recently. One officer called it a weird case. Another mentioned trying to speak with Donovan's mother and planning to call her back. They talked about how Aniya's male best friend hadn't seen or heard from her, and how her roommate hadn't seen her since Friday because she was out of town all weekend. The officers stood in front of their police car discussing their concerns about the case. One suggested this should probably be handled by detectives at this point. Another agreed, saying something fishy was definitely going on. They discussed various possibilities. Maybe she was with a new boyfriend, but questioned why she would completely cut off all of her best friends if that were the case. Then things took an unexpected turn. While the officers were standing outside discussing the case, a man wearing a black t-shirt, khaki shorts, and carrying a backpack approached them from the front left side of their police car. It was dark outside. The officers asked what was going on. The man told them to take him somewhere private where they could talk. The officers wanted to know what was happening right then. The man made a shocking statement. He told them he had killed his girlfriend. The officers immediately called for backup and secured the man, who was indeed Donovan Lewis. They informed him of his rights, telling him he had the right to remain silent, that anything he said could be used against him in court, and that he had the right to talk to a lawyer. They asked if he had any weapons on him. Donovan began explaining what had happened. He had been in Indianapolis and came back to town about a week or 3 weeks ago, around the 16th. When he got back, he went through Aniya's phone and found out she was involved with someone else. He tried to get over it and move forward, and they had a couple of good weeks together. But recently, on Sunday, they had an argument. It involved the fact that he had just moved back and didn't have a job yet. She told him he wasn't doing enough. He said he could call his father and ask for help. She became very angry with him and said hurtful things. He mentioned that it was extremely painful for him, referencing something that had happened on Saturday or Sunday. The officer told Donovan to sit tight and stepped away briefly. When he returned, Donovan said something that made the situation even more serious. He told the officers that Aniya was in the river on the east side of the city somewhere, possibly around East Main or in that general area. Donovan Lewis was officially placed under arrest. Though officers wanted to wait for detectives before taking the interview further, Donovan kept talking as they put him in the back of the police car, providing scattered details about what had happened. Officer Libretto arrived back at the scene to find that what had seemed like possibly just a missing person case minutes earlier was now a homicide investigation. He asked for clarification, and another officer confirmed that according to Donovan, Aniya was in a creek somewhere on the east side of town. Officer Lockett became the main contact. He drove Donovan to the police station and made small talk with him while they waited for detectives to arrive. Lockett had to remind himself that if Donovan chose to say things on his own after being read his rights, that was Donovan's choice. Once Lockett got Donovan talking more, the 25-year-old made some surprising accusations. He explained that after going through his girlfriend's phone, he discovered inappropriate text messages from her pastor. He believed the two were physically involved in a relationship. He also claimed that because Aniya had been struggling financially, she had been blackmailing the pastor. According to Donovan, while he was out of state, the pastor had been paying her rent and phone bill and had even given her the second Malibu to drive. Donovan described problems they had been having. The previous week, the car belonging to the pastor that Aniya was using had gotten flat tires. He said the tires kept deflating and reinflating. Then on Sunday, Aniya wanted to go to church. She went outside and found the front tire was flat again. Donovan thought someone was deliberately doing this to the car. When officers asked if he thought the tires were just old and bad, Donovan suggested it had something to do with the pastor. Donovan explained that when Aniya got the second car, she told him to pick her up. She mentioned that she got a new car from the church. He decided he wanted to have a conversation with her about it because the pastor kept picking her up. According to Donovan, the pastor had threatened Aniya about the car. When asked why, Donovan said it was because she was using the pastor and threatening to expose their relationship. The pastor allegedly told her she couldn't do this to him. Donovan said Aniya had gone to her pastor, who he identified as Pastor Strickland of Second Baptist Church, and told him she would reveal everything if he didn't help her. An argument had broken out at Aniya's apartment that Sunday. It was partly caused by ongoing tensions about her relationship with Pastor Strickland, who was married and also served as the local president of the NAACP. Aniya had begun attending his church at the beginning of that year.
If you're enjoying this story, kindly do us a favor and subscribe to our channel. It is free and won't cost anything, but it means the world to us. We're just a small channel trying to grow. Thank you, and back to the video.
Donovan described how Aniya physically struggled with him over her phone. He said she ended up in a position on her knees and hands. He saw messages from the pastor saying certain things to her. She eventually gave up the phone, and the whole time she was laughing. She was smiling, he said, because she knew that if he made accusations, she could have a response ready. He told officers to think about what her reaction would be after he found out what had been going on. When detectives arrived, Donovan Lewis offered a complete written confession to the murder. He wrote that Aniya's Malibu had continued getting flat tires. The pastor had paid to have the tires fixed at least once. Strickland then offered her the second Malibu, which he claimed to own, for her to use. That car also began getting flats and became unusable. The pastor began coming by the apartment more frequently to pick up Aniya. Earlier in the year, She had taken an all-expenses-paid trip with the pastor and other choir members to his native Mississippi. According to Donovan, Aniya had admitted to him that she was using the relationship as leverage. After threatening to expose the relationship to the pastor's wife and others, Donovan claimed that Strickland had threatened Aniya around the same time he dropped off the Malibu for her to drive. Aniya had allegedly told Donovan that the pastor made it clear he was willing to hurt her. On that Sunday, Donovan had been drinking. Aniya was running a bath. He claimed to be drunk and exhausted from not sleeping, having stayed up all night going through her phone. One text message from Pastor Strickland in particular had made him very angry. The two began arguing. Aniya told him she wanted him to leave for good. She got out one of his suitcases and began packing his belongings into it. That was when Donovan said he struck her, knocking her unconscious. He then went into the kitchen, got a large knife, and returned to the bedroom where he slit her throat and stabbed her. He admitted that he put a garbage bag over her head and placed her body in the suitcase. He put the suitcase in a dumpster outside the visitor parking area. The next day, in the dark, he retrieved the suitcase using his mother's van. He drove out to Comstock Creek on East Main Street, past Sprinkle Road. He left Aniya's body in a deep stream off the creek, weighing down the suitcase with mud so it would sink toward the bottom of the water. Friends and family were devastated. They described how when Aniya walked into a room, all eyes were on her. She was supposed to start summer school, and her absence was heartbreaking. They remembered how she always said that if something happened to her, she didn't want everyone to be sad or wear black. She wanted everyone to wear bright colors. Though they had been crying, they knew that wasn't what she would have wanted. She would want them to be as happy as possible and give her the best memorial service they could. Investigators questioned some details Donovan provided. In particular, they had doubts about how the murder happened based on the lack of blood in the apartment. The responding officers hadn't identified any signs that a stabbing had taken place there. However, upon closer inspection, small but identifiable stains were discovered in the hallway, on the edge of Aniya's bed, and on the bedroom carpet. Cleaning products that were already inside the apartment had been used to clean other surfaces. Donovan had thrown away a mattress cover in the apartment dumpster, which had already been collected by the time law enforcement looked for it. He had placed the bath mats in the washing machine. He had disposed of his own clothing at his mother's home. Aniya's personal belongings, her purse, ID, and bank cards, were thrown away in a bin near his workplace. Only some of this evidence was ever recovered. The physical evidence wasn't the only part of his story that detectives wanted to verify. Pastor Strickland told the Kalamazoo police that Aniya Mack was simply a member of his church congregation and choir. He denied having a relationship with her. When pressed by detectives, Donovan admitted that Aniya had never actually confessed to having an affair with the pastor, only that she was allegedly manipulating him for money. Strickland stated that Aniya had recently traveled with him to Mississippi for a choir trip. While there, she met a young man she was interested in, and they started a relationship. He said that because she had a boyfriend in Kalamazoo, she was hiding the relationship with the young man in Mississippi. According to Pastor Strickland, Aniya was doing this by hiding the Mississippi man's contact information in her phone under the pastor's name. He claimed she did this so if her boyfriend Donovan saw the phone, he would think it was the pastor contacting her and wouldn't be suspicious. About a month after the pastor gave his statement to police, he contacted them again. He wanted the 2008 white Malibu returned to him. The problem was that he couldn't prove he had properly purchased it. Strickland claimed the car belonged to his wife Jasmine. He said he had purchased it from a man, presumably named Gustavo, but had no title or bill of sale. When a detective called him back, Strickland explained that one of the cars taken related to Aniya's murder belonged to his wife. They were trying to get it back. He said they had misplaced the title before going out of town. Aniya had contacted them while they were away and told them she had found the title. She said it was in the console, folded up very small. He thought this would be the car without tinted windows or rims, just factory standard. He hoped that Aniya hadn't taken the title out or put it somewhere else, and that police would find it in the console. He admitted he didn't know how much information the previous owner had filled out on the title because he had given him a bill of sale with all the information on it, but he had lost that and the title. Ownership of the car was never proven, and it was not returned to the pastor. This would be the least of the pastor's problems, however. Later that year, he was accused by 3 teenagers in his church of sexual assault. He and his wife stood accused of using their positions in the church and at a local school to pressure teens into sexual situations. One victim reported feeling unable to refuse the pastor's advances because he really needed to use the car that the pastor was lending him. When asked about the charges, representatives stated that Pastor Strickland hadn't gone anywhere and remained as pastor. He faced charges including criminal sexual conduct and pandering. When asked for a response, the answer was simply not guilty on all charges. He didn't do any of it. When asked if it was typical for the pastor to personally give teens and boys in the community money, his representative said he didn't know of any situation where that had happened, though there were programs through the church that helped kids. The Michigan State Police investigation into Strickland and his wife found that the alleged assaults took place between January and May 2018. Text messages and screenshots of photographs from the victims' cell phones supported their claims against Strickland. In February 2023, a plea agreement was reached. Strickland admitted to using a vehicle to solicit prostitution. The court asked him to confirm that during that time, within the county, he had knowingly offered to sell transportation services to certain individuals that facilitated travel for the purpose of engaging in prostitution. He answered yes. The pastor was sentenced to 1 year in prison. In a lengthy sentencing statement, the pastor continued to deny his guilt. He explained that accepting the plea was simply in the best interest of his family. He stated that he wasn't there to pretend he was innocent and without fault, but that he was not guilty of what he was accused of. He was glad that the 10 most serious charges were dismissed. He said that eventually the prosecutors, with their backs against the wall, made a deal that he believed was too good to put his family through the risk of a trial. He knew they would use the media to try to pretend they had won, or that this was some victory for the prosecutor's office. He insisted this was not a win for the prosecutor's office and certainly not a win for justice. Donovan Lewis agreed to lead Kalamazoo police to the location at Comstock Creek where he had left Aniya. He showed them the spot, explaining that the area was slightly sloped. Officers asked him to clarify exactly where he had gone, whether he had left the suitcase on one side of the guardrail or brought it all the way down to the water. He confirmed he had wheeled her in the suitcase all the way down to the water. They asked him to park near where a white truck was positioned. When asked how he got her into the water, he said he just threw the suitcase with her body into the water. He confirmed this was the right spot. An accomplished swimmer, Donovan had taken Aniya in the suitcase further down the creek and into the deeper, muddy water. Searchers couldn't wade into the stream, so instead they used a rescue boat. The team worked carefully, aware that media cameras were recording them. At 9:20 in the morning, they connected to the suitcase. They brought it closer to shore. When they opened it to confirm what was inside, the discovery was recorded. They navigated the boat back upstream, securing everything carefully. Someone noted that the luggage tag was loose and sitting on top. After recovering the suitcase from the water, investigators continued searching the small channel for the murder weapon, the black-handled butcher knife that Donovan had used. He stated that he had stuck it into the side of the creek very close to where the suitcase was. After removing several feet of vegetation, searchers were still unable to find it. Nevertheless, the recovery had been successful. Aniya's family was able to lay her to rest. At her memorial, people spoke about Aniya's legacy of caring for others and being about other people. They emphasized her commitment to mental health awareness and autism research, and her love for children. This was what they wanted people to focus on, her life and the love she had for everyone. 3 days before Donovan Lewis was supposed to stand trial for first-degree murder, he was in the recreation yard at the Kalamazoo County Jail playing soccer with a handful of other inmates. After about 30 minutes of recreation time, he suddenly stopped kicking the soccer ball and ran toward the fence. Donovan climbed 2 15-foot walls, got over security fences, one topped with barbed wire and another topped with razor wire, and then climbed a third fence that separated the jail from the Business Loop Highway. He was captured just over half an hour later. Officials explained that it appeared Donovan was able to find a spot and get over all the barriers without injuring himself. The first level was a barbed wire fence and the second level was razor wire. After getting over both of those, he went over the barbed wire fence that separated the business loop of Interstate 94 from the jail. His jail jumpsuit was found about 100 yards south of that spot. Donovan later claimed he wasn't trying to avoid punishment for the murder. He said he feared for his family, claiming they had been receiving death threats. No evidence for this claim was ever presented. He pleaded guilty to the escape charge. Aniya's family wanted to avoid the trauma of a trial, so in late 2018, the state agreed to offer Donovan Lewis a plea deal for second-degree murder. At his sentencing, Donovan spoke briefly. He said he couldn't imagine the hurt he had caused and didn't even know where to begin. He simply wanted to say sorry to the family. That was all. The judge addressed Donovan, saying he had considered the principles of punishment, rehabilitation, protection of society, and deterrence. He acknowledged that Donovan had been cooperative, had taken full responsibility without minimizing his role, and had expressed remorse. The judge noted that Donovan had a decent education and many good things going for him in his life, but he had thrown all of that away on June 24th. The judge emphasized that Aniya didn't deserve any of what happened to her. She didn't deserve to be hit to begin with. She didn't deserve to be knocked unconscious. She didn't deserve to be stabbed and murdered. And her body didn't deserve to be treated like garbage. All of that happened because of Donovan, nobody else. Donovan Lewis was sentenced to 25 to 40 years in prison. He was given an additional 17 months to 4 years for his escape from the county jail. When Aniya's sister was asked how she felt about the sentence, she said she felt good because her sister was okay with it, so she was okay with it too. When asked about the family speaking about forgiveness and not wanting to take pain for pain, but hoping Donovan could live with what he had done, she explained that Donovan would have to live with it for the rest of his life. Whether or not he was sincere with what he said in the courtroom, he would have to live with it. She said she hoped Donovan could, and he meant that. When asked about forgiveness, she was honest. She and Aniya's sister hadn't forgiven Donovan yet. In time, she was sure they would, but not at that moment. They weren't ready. When asked to talk about Aniya, she remembered how and when the story first broke, everyone had beautiful things to say about her. It was clear she was one of the most loving people. The fact that she loved someone like Donovan, who turned out to be a monster, said a lot about her personality and her capacity for love. Pastor Strickland served his brief sentence for the single felony count of offering transportation services for engaging in prostitution. It appears he now goes by the name Dr. Floyd Strickland and serves as a pastor at Galilee Baptist Church in Mount Olive, Mississippi. And that was how Aniya Mack's story ended. A bright, driven, soft-hearted young woman whose future was stolen by the very person she believed would protect it. Every crime leaves a trace, and we're here to follow them. Subscribe for more real, haunting stories you won't forget.